Good morning. I wanted to show you how easy it is to make butter in your food processor. I use my food processor with the dough blade on it. You can also make it in your blender, but I feel like it's easier to get the butter out of the food processor for cleaning purposes. You can also use a stand mixer with the whisk attachment on it, but I found that it's a lot messier. I do also have a butter churn that is a hand crank, but it takes a lot longer to make the butter and it has to be made in much smaller batches, which is not very efficient for me. But at least I have a backup way of making butter if the power goes out. I'm doing a voiceover for the audio today. The food processor isn't what I would consider extremely noisy, but I'm a bit under the weather today with a sore throat and a cough, so I wanted to make sure that you could hear me. I started with about 3/4 of a gallon of cream total. I let the cream sit out on the counter until it came to about 64 degrees and measured that using my dairy thermometer, which I do calibrate as needed before every 1 to 2 uses. Once the cream was at 64 degrees, I pour about 1/3 of the cream into my food processor bowl with the dough blade in place, put the lid on, and then press the button for high power. As you can see, the cream is thinner to begin with. It takes about 5 minutes, give or take, for the cream to start to change from a thinner liquid to a more whipped consistency. Once the cream changes to a whipped consistency, it's not going to be long before you'll notice that small flecks start to appear in the whipped cream. Those flecks then become chunks, which then become a clump of butter. We call that the breaking point, when the butter actually breaks and separates from the milk. A side note here, a common misconception is that the milk left over when you make butter is buttermilk, but this is not so. Buttermilk is a cultured dairy product, and I feel another video coming. We're getting really close to the breaking point right here. As you can see, it's getting clumpier, and then you can see it start to break. You can use the milk that is left over after the butter separates as long as you use it within a few hours. It doesn't stay good for much longer than that. When the butter breaks and you have a large clump of butter, a few smaller clumps remaining is fine. Then you want to take the food processor bowl off of the mixer or off the food processor and dump the bowl into a larger bowl that you can use to collect the butter for rinsing and salting. I repeated the process until I got all of my cream made into butter. After that, you need to rinse your butter well to remove as much of the remaining milk as possible, because if you leave too much milk in your butter, it will cause it to spoil faster. You need to rinse your butter with cold water until the rinse water is pretty much clear. Then you'll add salt to help preserve the butter. It takes about 1/4 teaspoon of salt per quart of butter. Since I had about 3 quarts, I'm using about 3/4 teaspoon of salt. Once you add the salt to your butter, you want to start working it in and gently squeezing to get more milk out of your butter. Once the salt's worked in and you aren't getting much milk out, because you'll still get a few drips here and there, then it's time to mold your butter. Now, I like to weigh my butter to see how much I ended up with. In this case, it was just a little bit over 2 pounds for 3 quarts of cream. I measure out 4-ounce portions of butter, the same as a stick of store-bought butter, and that makes it a lot easier when I'm making recipes that call for a half a stick or a full stick of butter. Then I use butter paddles and press or mold my butter into sticks. You just take your pre-measured 1/4 pound of butter, press it between your butter paddles, turning it and shaping it into that stick form. Then I wrap my sticks of butter in plastic wrap and place them in a dated freezer bag before putting them in the freezer. I'll take them out a day or two before I'm ready to use them. I'll link all the products I use for making butter below. Please remember to like and subscribe to my channel so I know I'm making content that you want to see. If you have requests for videos, things you want to see, or for me to show you how to do, please leave a comment below. And as always, thanks for watching. Have a great day.